Hi guys.
Hello.
So this is the video we promised about updates, what's going on here in Italy. I took notes just because I have a really bad memory. So first of all, we wanted to thank you guys so much for checking in with us and just making sure everything's okay, which it is so far. Do you have anything you want to start with?
So obviously we're on lockdown, right? So what does that mean? That means that you can't leave your house unless you have something that is necessary, which basically is defined by something medical. You need to get food, water, or you are allowed to go work. So many businesses are shut down. Restaurants are shut down. Basically, unless you're a grocery store, a pharmacia, or a needed factory, you're shut down. Obviously, for all the folks that are stationed over here, some folks still going in, some folks not. But that's the state we're at right now, and you can be fined. So depending on what it is you're doing, whether you're breaking that and going out and going for a walk, you can be fined up to $600 if you're not within, or if you're within 1 meter of each other. So if you're not practicing that social distancing. The other thing is a $250 fine if you're caught outside without a necessity. And you actually have to carry a piece of paper on you that's pre-filled out that has all your information, where you're at, where you live.
And if I could just interject real quick, for those of you that don't know us, we're in northern Italy where the virus is rampant right now. So just to clear that up.
Mostly around us, but we definitely have a lot of stuff going on within our region. But the regions that surround us to the west, southwest, and south are hit much harder. So you have to carry that form on you at all times. And when you're stopped, which there are checkpoints set up all over, they will say, hey, where you're going, what are you doing? You will fill that out, and the police will actually take that and verify it. So if you're like, hey, I'm out because I'm at a medical appointment, you'll say, I'm at this medical appointment with this doctor. They will actually call and confirm that you are going to that appointment at that specified time. Other things to note, so you get to go to the grocery store, right? Because you can eat. Well, you can't go as a family. So if you're a husband and wife, one of you has to go. One should stay home with the kids. The other person should go. You can actually be fined if you're found going as a family. In fact, earlier there were some reported situations where somebody went with their kids and they were given a very large fine.
600 euro, I think.
Correct. Now that's being worked. There's some other extenuating issues. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is that this is something brand new for everybody, right? So it's not that anything is to blame, but people are trying to make sure that this is contained, right? And that's the biggest thing with this is containment. Well, why? So when you look at the 12,500 cases that you have had in Italy over the past number of weeks, a lot of them are being hospitalized. I think when it was at 6,000, that 50% of all individuals were actually hospitalized. So what does that create? That creates the hospitals being overrun, right? You have routine things going on. You have emergencies going on right now. Then you have a number of folks that are coming in, and there's not enough beds. They're actually at the point in Italy now where they're taking some of the most severe cases because they don't have enough ICU units, and they're looking at someone and saying, hey, you're 80, 85 years old. It's not looking good. We can choose that, or somebody that's 40 years old with a condition that we think may survive better, and they're choosing them over someone else.
And a lot of that's around Milan where a lot of this started. I've heard especially there, but obviously it's here now too. And day to day there's huge changes. Everything, each hour, things are changing here. Not getting better either so far.
Right. And they have, patrols, armed patrols going around. They have the police with loudspeakers that are going around all the towns and saying, hey, stay in. Basically, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., going out and doing those necessity type of things, such as getting food, is when you're authorized. After that, you're expected really, unless there's a medical emergency or you somehow have a reason to be working at night that's a valid job that you're expected, you should be in your house. No exercising. You can't go for a run. Folks are allowed to take their dogs out for a walk and to go to the bathroom, that kind of thing, for very short durations.
Should we look at some of the questions? Let's see.
Yeah, let's see what we got here. Anything?
What supplies do you wish you had or are most happy that you have?
So with supplies,
Don't wake up the kids.
that hasn't been a huge thing yet, right? So the grocery stores are still stocked here. On base, there's a number of issues, but that's more of people kind of converging all at once and taking everything.
And
Same
for those,
thing.
Sorry, for those of you that don't know, we have a place called a commissary, for those of you that aren't familiar, where we have our grocery stores. So when we say on base, we're referring to the commissary where we get our food. We're allowed to shop off base too, but just so you know, when he says that, that's what we're referring to.
Right. So the toilet paper issue that everyone is experiencing over there, we have had that here, but so far it's just been on base. Off base, we haven't really seen a dip into the supermarkets here yet. We haven't seen a whole bunch of widespread panic, but something that happened yesterday as a decree that's going to take place tomorrow is that they're going to be shutting down the borders and doing a stop movement for people coming in. And many countries have already done that against us. So what that means that we don't know yet is, well, what does Italy exactly import, and how much they import of what items, and how much of those are going to be allowed to come in and how much aren't. So I don't expect anyone's obviously going to starve to death. Really, the max impact is you may be inconvenienced with being in place, and you may not have the luxuries that you had. Maybe you don't get to have the pizza rolls, or you don't get to have, the specific bread you want. But, it's not an apocalyptic type episode.
Okay. Let's see. Is the virus as bad as the media is making it out to be?
So obviously we can't fully answer that as not being medical professionals, but what I explained earlier with the amount of beds, the number of people being infected, and the other thing being the rate of being infected, it obviously is a big deal. And then when you look at why the World Health Organization label it an epidemic, and you look at the foothold it has in so many different countries and its ability to possibly mutate into something even worse, or change as they get a vaccine the same way that maybe the flu is, there's definitely concern. But that hospitalization rate is a huge concern with the number of beds, and I'm sure it probably will be if it really spreads and fans out in the United States. The other thing to think about with the flu compared to this is also the contagion rate. So if I remember correctly, the flu right now, for every person infected, it's infecting 1.3 others, right? Right now, this virus is infecting 2.2 other people. So if you look at that and you compound that over the number of people versus the amount of time for incubation and amount of time to be able to spread that, even when you're asymptomatic, obviously that poses a huge issue if you don't control it, right? And then being carriers. So, hey, the kids, aren't being affected. Sure, those kids, and obviously they're not getting into, maybe a couple of cases that are out there with some pre-existing conditions. But nonetheless, you can be a carrier, and it is posting a heavy toll on the elderly rate, right? And in Italy, we know that there is a larger proportion of elderly folks, and when we look at the mortality rate that's coming from Italy so far, we can see that here. So just because it's not a big deal for somebody who's young like us and healthy, it is a big deal for anybody else who is older and who is not.
Like he said, we might not show many symptoms. Our kids probably will be sick for a day or two, run down. You might just think it's a cold. But that's my huge thing is people saying, 50s or under, we're going to be okay. Like he said, yes, maybe, probably, but you can carry it. So those of you that have grandkids, if they have a fever or, even just a fever, moms and dads, I wouldn't bring them near grandma or grandpa until you have the full symptoms. Nasal congestion is very unlikely with this virus. So if they have a super stuffy nose, probably not this. Again, we're not medical professionals. We're not giving any medical advice as a professional, but just be smart, and think about, like he said, the ones that are at risk. That's my big thing so far. It's not trying to be rude, but it's not all about us. It's not all about you, and luckily it is sparing the kids so far, but we need to think about those that are at risk for sure.
And for the grocery stores, so far still in Italy, the local grocery stores are still stocked. The base thing is just entirely different as people get information and kind of, rush to get some of those things that you may not get, right? Because we get some items from the United States that are comfort items, right? That we know that, hey, as they're shutting down borders, we may not get those comfort things. So
like Doritos.
Right, like Doritos, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for quarantine versus lockdown, we're not in quarantine or isolation, which is those that, have some symptoms or
Which our
maybe
mayor is.
the mayor is, but we're in lockdown,
yes.
right? So we don't have the same freedoms. And that's something else that is interesting with how China has handled it and how Italy is handling it and trying to get a hold on it. It'll be much more difficult in the United States, aside from declaring huge swaths of areas with martial law and curfew. It's much easier for them to try to control over here, but of course it's at the cost of your freedom. So not getting in a debate over that, but there are some things that they can do here to, hey, just put a kibosh on it, and hey, everyone's staying home, everyone's doing this, or you're going to get a fine. Really, what I see back in the States is it's going to be up to the individuals to take things seriously. You don't have to, panic and necessarily freak out, but you should be a realist.
Be smart.
Right. Like, as for stocking up, we started stocking up on some things. Didn't go crazy, not spending thousands of dollars. But if you're going to buy things and canned goods and items that you're going to use over the next couple of months anyways, why not? Right? Like,
people
you're going to use it.
Who cares? You're protecting your family.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
You're not stocking 20 freezers with a bunch of food. You're making sure that you have what you need for the foreseeable month or so, few weeks.
You went over the grocery store as being stocked.
I did.
How long have you been quarantined? That was the term. Again, we're
Right.
locked down, not quarantined, unless we are showing symptoms or been confirmed to have it. Are they hospitalizing just because they have the virus? Is the sickness that bad, or is it like the flu, where it sucks but people get better? You kind of answered that. But anything to add?
So, from what I understand is a number of the folks, they're going in and they're having respiratory issues, right? That dry cough, they're having that fever. They're having legit things. One of them is, severe dehydration from the fever, from the symptoms that is putting people into the hospital. If they can talk to you, which they do over the phone, I know a number of people who have been quarantined, screened. So, hey, I have the symptoms, but they don't seem deathly ill. They're just saying, hey, stay in your house, stay away from people. There's, a low, medium, and high risk factor based on your symptoms, based on if you've been somewhere where there has been exposure or been around someone that has been exposed. But if you're not in a, really bad state, they're making people stay home. It's not like, hey, come to the hospital. So when you look at the hospitalizations, from my opinion, and this is my opinion only, is, those are legit hospitalizations where they go in there and people have some pretty terrible symptoms. Yeah. Now, are there probably some of them who have went in and they're just kind of borderline and there's a bed available and they say, cool, we want to keep you here and they can isolate them? Sure,
especially
I'm sure
at
that's
the beginning
happening.
when they weren't at the point we are now, So
right.
Yeah. Let's see. Drink that wine, my friend. I am.
Or Yingling.
Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for the prayers. Why is the media saying it's so huge when people who have it or have had it say it's just like a rough cold or a mild virus? Why so much action when influenza A had killed more people in the U.S. than coronavirus worldwide?
I'll talk about that real quick.
Okay.
So some people have very mild symptoms, and then a whole swath of people have huge issues. Like I said, there was a point in Italy where half of all people who were confirmed to have the coronavirus, the COVID-19 anyway, were hospitalized. So when you look at the flu, you have to say that, the flu is everywhere, right? You see lulls during the summertime, which the theory is based on humidity and heat, that it kind of tempers it. It doesn't go away. But at the start of, the colder season, or as it starts to warm up, it's right there. It's everywhere in the world. And at this point, the flu has had a whole lot of time being already spread around the world to have that effect. What you're looking at now is a brand new virus, so you have to look at, how much is this spreading? At what rate is this spreading compared to the areas that it's exposed to? So when you look at something that started in China and the measures that many of these countries in Europe have been affected, and it's still spreading out, it's still kind of going really at a kind of a rampant rate. And even in China, it's starting to calm down now after the amount that they've had, and the amount of freedoms they have is very little. We all understand that in China they can do what they want. They can go over there and say no one leaves the house, or really, really bad things happen. So they can lock down their communities a whole lot easier, and it has still taken them this long just to get an edge on it. So when I see the comparison to the flu, they're not real comparisons. If you look back at some of the stuff on Facebook, you'll see like memes like, haha, only 49 people in the world have died from coronavirus and XYZ from the flu. And now you're seeing what's going on as this virus continues to spread, even with what has been done to help stop it. So yeah, it's a big deal in all of those aspects.
What are the authorities there seeing it firsthand or saying? We haven't really been in communication with, well, besides from the base.
It's basically the same stuff that, we've already said
Yeah.
overall, right? Like they're seeing mortality rates really high in the elderly rate, which they have a lot here. They're seeing a lot of hospitalizations. And how's it affecting people? Obviously, the entire country is on lockdown. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty big deal, something I've never experienced in my life, especially, kind of sitting around as a civilian, right?
In another country.
In another country,
which they've
right?
been great. We think they're doing a great job.
In a civilian setting, I guess is
Right.
what I should say.
Right. Hi, Angela. Have you personally seen it affecting people, or have you just heard of it happening around you? I, for myself and the kids, a few days before they stopped school, me just being a mom and a dad, we made the decision we aren't sending our kids. And I think they just missed one day before they totally shut it down, and we haven't been back since. But myself and the kids haven't seen anyone, just because we're rule followers and we have stayed in the house or played in our backyard. So I haven't personally seen anyone sick, haven't been in contact with anyone sick. My husband is still going to work at this time, so I'll let him tell his experience.
Right. So at our base, there have been 0 confirmed cases. Not everyone's getting tested. There's a lot of issues getting testing kits in here. They've taken some of the most sick folks, and they have isolated them. There have been over 100 folks on base that have been isolated or quarantined at one time or another based on symptoms or where they have been. One thing that's a factor for folks, not just here, but in any of the NATO bases in Italy, when you think about it, prior to the lockdown, who are the main folks that are going to all the events like the Carnival and going to Venice and going to Rome and going to all these places and sightseeing? It's going to be tourists. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the folks that are stationed here, that they don't live here, so a lot of folks spreading that are going to come from it. So, that's kind of the concern, or was a concern with, those folks. And they do have at least one confirmed case that we know of in Naples. Military,
American,
or
yeah.
not necessarily an American, but
Navy
NATO-wise.
personnel, I think.
For sure. So, yeah.
Do they still know why the new cases in Italy are still high with the new quarantine? My view on that is we started like the whole lockdown thing not long ago, and it's going to take a little bit. The incubation is up to 14 days, 2 to 14
with the
days on
median being
average.
5 or 6.
Of course, with the extreme cases that it's over 14. But, just in Italy right now, according to this website that we've been looking at that's reputable, 15,113 cases. That's just the ones that they've tested on, okay? New cases in the last 24 hours, 2,651. Total deaths, over 1,000. New deaths in the last 24 hours, 189. So, again, not a medical professional, but my opinion is because it's going to take a while. I mean, it had to run its course in China. China right now, in the last 24 hours, only 18 new cases, 11 new deaths. And I'm not taking deaths lightly. Every life is important, and it's extremely sad. I'm just saying the statistics to help answer the questions. But any thoughts?
2 other pieces will be that contagion factor that I talked about. So a lot more folks will get infected comparatively to, say, than the flu. Something else is, Italy is small, like many European countries. The streets are small. The sidewalks are small. Crowds that have gathered for these events, are packed tightly together.
And they love to gather.
Absolutely. So when you talk about the close quarters of it with that contagion factor, that's been a huge issue, and that is another reason for them putting folks on lockdown and locking down the regions to get rid of those public gatherings in those tight spaces.
Yeah. You guys are amazing. Thank you for doing this.
Are tests readily available? So I know within Italy and the government of Italy, from what I understand, yes. As for our folks on the base, initially the answer was not so much. They were sending some folks away to some other facilities. My current understanding is that now they do have more testing abilities and they are testing, but as for anything, official or on that, like obviously I can't speak to that. I can just say that initially they didn't have that capability, but now they have some sort of capability on base.
Have they done anything for those unable to work and pay their bills? Well,
in Italy,
the Italians, they have put a stop on mortgage payments, so they're not paying a mortgage.
Some form of taxes. I don't know what that tax relief looks like, and they're also looking at some different bills to help folks and just kind of put money in their pockets. So they are doing what they can, but obviously the economy has taken a huge hit. Some things that I've read are, upwards of 11, 12, 13% in Milan, which is one of the hardest hit areas.
When we're talking about Italy, we're doing good.
Yes.
So,
yes.
the gestation period of the virus can be up to 2 weeks from what they know. So you could carry and spread the virus for 14 days before you show any physical symptoms.
Absolutely,
Yes,
as the max,
right.
with the median being 5 or 6 days.
What does lockdown mean?
So lockdown is you can't go anywhere unless you have an actual need. You have to carry paperwork. You have to make a statement when or if you're pulled over saying this is why I'm going, and they'll validate that. So think about it being like on house arrest. You don't have a bracelet, you don't have a tether, but if you go out, you have to have your paperwork, and if not, you're going to get in trouble. You could be confined or fined and or.
And it's no joke. They are serious, dead serious about it here. Oh, wait. You're welcome. Lockdown, not quarantine. Yep.
So the Costco's, we don't have Costco's here so far. The local markets that I've been to,
Costco, I think. So.
They haven't been bad. But when you talk about on base, there has been again some runs on there, mostly due to the fear that hey, some of the stuff that we get from the United States that we can't get here, we may not have access to that. But it's not a big deal.
And to add something to that, I don't know what's our spot. The BX here, which for those of you that aren't familiar, that's like we have the commissary, grocery, and then the BX, kind of like for those of you from Michigan, like our Meijer, the department store portion of it. That was closed today completely without warning. So any of our friends that are overseas that haven't had that happen yet, if there's anything you need from the BX, obviously it probably is an emergency. But the main thing I've heard is dog food for people here that they got from the BX. A lot of dogs nowadays have allergies, so they wish they would have bought more dog food, believe it or not, because here, going into the Italian stores, they're not familiar with the ingredients and different things on the bag. So I'm sure all of you are thinking of your furry friends, but if not, it'd be smart to buy another bag or two just to make sure they have what they need.
And for us, it's day by day. So they closed the BX today, but they are going to actually open it tomorrow.
Okay, I didn't hear that yet.
And that's because some of the things that folks may need are like IT stuff. So being able to telework, because they don't want people to going to work if you don't have to. As well as inside of our BX, we also have some pharmaceutical options at our disposal, and for the Italian government, what they call pharmacias or parapharmacias, where you can get your prescription drugs or you get your over-the-counter drugs. Those are still open for people. So because of our facilities are equipped with those, the BX, they are going to actually reopen it. But that doesn't mean that it stays open forever. They could come back out and say, hey, no.
And then, again, lockdown, we're not even allowed to go to the park. We stay in our house unless you have a necessity, such as work.
Online schooling?
Can you explain briefly? Wait, Ashley.
Briefly.
You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
Briefly, let's just say you become the teacher. You have 5,500 apps, 12 different emails, and she's spending, 10, 12 hours a day just between two kids, each in different grades, trying to get things to work that delete or that don't save or say you didn't turn in when you did turn in. And it's the school is doing the best they can. They're trying to be innovative. I think they're doing a great job with what they've had, but it's rough. And realistically, there's going to be no other way than rough when something like this happens when you're not prepared. Nobody's prepared to say, hey, all schools are closed, and they could be closed for months at this point, the rest of the school year. And you want to make sure that those kids still get the learning and education they need to continue on to the next grade. So that has to be an extremely daunting task for the school here. So I think they're doing a great job with what they can do.
And what I'll say is the process they did here, which this was unexpected to happen, it takes time. This is like making a whole new curriculum. So it started with a website with, each subject and what to do and how to turn it in. But like us, we need a new laptop. Our internet connection isn't the best. So it's been difficult with the way the teachers have wanted things submitted. Basically just chaos when it first started. But now they're going with Google Classroom. So the assignments will all be listed in one spot. If you need to click, YouTube's been huge here to help, believe it or not, teach, as far as for Mila, for example, learning sight words and, kindergarten things, even Lucius, mainly Mila with the kindergarten. Lucius they both have a couple of different websites that the school already implemented ahead of time, which has been helpful. But the big thing I would say, if it happens where you guys are, I really hope it doesn't, but I would advise the teachers just to start right off the bat with Google Classroom, have each subject listed there, and there's a button that says turn in, so when you finish the assignment, they can turn it in there. Some of them will want proof. Oh, take a picture of your child's work, and then they will write an email back and praise the child. Oh, great job, I like what you did here. The school is doing a phenomenal job. The teachers have been great. They're holding hours in, I believe it's called Google Hangout. So each teacher will be available during normal school hours. Some of them will take turns, and there'll always be someone to help. And then they've also started virtual classrooms. So Lucius started that last week, and Mila. And, we even did a class today. So that Google's been great with this. So that's basically the online schooling. If anyone else has questions about that, feel free to ask.
So it sounds like China was being reactive versus proactive. Absolutely, that's the first part of that piece. And they're kind of trying to suppress it, right? I'm not going to get into any of the politics or any of that. Seems like the USA is being proactive. I don't know, to be honest. It's such a tough thing, especially with a country that is so big, right? The problem with this is everything looks like it's good, and then bam, it's not good. So we went from, there's a first case in Italy to a couple weeks later, like regions are on lockdown. It's like wildfire. So obviously the amount of money that they're putting into it and what they're trying to do makes sense, and they're trying to get on it. I think seeing what's happened in Europe has helped prepare the United States a little bit more because they've gotten to see exactly what's going on with it, how it's spreading. So I think maybe the mechanisms that they have in place that you guys haven't seen yet probably are going to be more efficient. If it happens, it's probably going to be difficult, but I think they're going to be more prepared than some of the European nations over here were.
And rather as a whole country, as Italy, I see state to state, they're kind of working almost separately, but eventually it might come to, the country as a whole, you might do this or that. So it's kind of hard with the 50 states too, and, we're seeing different things, but a lot of events have been canceled, and just from the shock of what we've went through, I think there's no harm in that. I think that's a great idea. You still have your own freedom of choice, so it's up to you. But again, just be smart. Is it true the hospitals are being forced to decide who gets a ventilator and who doesn't?
We answered that one, but yes, absolutely, they're being forced to decide in some areas.
Definitely in Milan,
who gets the ventilator based on their age, condition, and chance of survivability. That's what I've read.
And we answered the question about lockdown. Yes, the kids and I have been staying home. We haven't went to the park. We haven't went on our walks, bike rides. We have stayed in the house or played in the yard. My husband, going to work, that's a necessity, so he's done that. You're welcome.
So where do we get our info from? Local news, the base, a plethora of things. All that internet research. The base has been really amazing. So they do town hall meetings. When we weren't able to do those, they did virtual town hall meetings, or anytime there's a new decree, a new thing going on, they have the legal team working, they have the medical team working, they have the services team working, answering people's questions. It's very well put together. It's actually quite amazing the amount of information and type of information that we have been getting.
And just be careful where you look at the information. You know, be careful of what's reputable and what's not. If you feel free to message me if you have questions about that, but everything you're seeing online isn't true, so just be careful.
And some of it's opinion based too, right?
Yeah, some of it is.
You're gonna like this one, you're not gonna like that one. I think this makes sense. You might think something else makes sense, and who knows who's right and wrong in some of those, right?
Hi Angela, here's my thing. It's not totally a new virus, right? It's been around since the 1960s,
Correct.
but it's not. Oh, but it's like the flu with different strains. And this one hasn't been seen in a very long time, if ever, from my understanding. Maybe I'm reading things wrong. They don't have a vaccine, and that's the scary thing.
Yes, that's the huge thing, is there's no vaccine. Yeah. So the thing with coronaviruses, there's many types of coronaviruses. I'm definitely not a medical professional again. But the significant thing with this is that the way that this coronavirus is built is that it is easily attachable to the lungs, easily replicatable with humans, causing those respiratory issues.
Pneumonia
and
is a huge one.
That's what's making a big difference between a coronavirus that can just get stuck in your nose and create that runny nose and that stuffy nose and that head cold that you know about. But the fact that how it's mutated through animals and finally mutated to be able to come to us, and that we don't have a vaccine for right now, is really the huge factor. So if I remember correctly, the H1N1 type virus that we had a number of years ago, it's the same iteration, if you will, or version from the 1918 to 1919 epidemic, which was huge. It killed a plethora of people, but they didn't have those vaccines back then. So that is what one of the huge concerns is now with it, is that they don't have the vaccine, and the fact that by the time they come up with that, it could have mutated. They don't know whether it's going to totally die out as the seasons get hotter, or mostly die out, or if it's going to come back, mutate, and come back with a vengeance. So they have had, similarities with MERS and SARS. So this is something that's kind of in between, if you will.
Yeah. Hi, Dana. This is completely unprecedented. I wish they'd just close the schools before there's really an issue. Yeah, I mean, it took a lot here, I shouldn't say a lot. It's just so weird how fast it happened. And again, us being American military family, we're following the suit of what Italy's doing, which they've done an exceptional job. But if the schools do close in the States, which they very well could, and they might be forced to, I would urge you to, not you, Dana, in particular, but anyone that seems inconvenienced about it, or different events I know you guys were looking forward to that might get canceled, I would urge you to just take heed that better days are coming, and really it's for your protection. It's like he said, this is so new, not that it's still guesses, but it's just new, and they're doing what they think is best. So yeah.
So as for the prison riots, I have heard about them, I've read about them, but I don't have any other details on it.
Yeah. And then the escapees, we saw possibly 50 inmates escaped over it.
As for the teepee stash, we have a small teepee stash. We have enough to get by. We did not buy 15 things of teepee.
Yeah, we're trying not to be selfish here. We have the bidets, right?
Haven't used that yet. Don't plan to, but you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Angela, it seems scary. I've been praying. Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks for the prayers. She's a nurse, by the way. I've seen it coming, but people are not taking it seriously. I don't think it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. Yeah, that's the thing about taking it seriously, too. I have a thing with germs, so right away I was like, okay, we're staying home. I even looked on Amazon and saw the hand sanitizer, and I said, I'm going to wait, but it was still in stock, and it's like, oh, okay. But we're not going anywhere, so we're not buying out the hand sanitizer. If it comes back in stock, we're good. The kids and I are at home. We don't have a need for it. That's, the other big thing is leaving. Don't be greedy, just be smart.
Right. if you're around somewhere where you can wash your hands with soap,
Yeah.
you wash your hands with soap.
There's
Sanitizer is when you're out and about and you've touched something or you have to wipe something down,
Yeah.
in that meantime.
And again, Angela, with it getting worse, I would not be surprised because, we always try to remain optimistic and hopeful, but it's getting a lot worse here, 2651 new cases in the last 24 hours. And again, that's just who have been tested. A lot of people aren't going to the doctor or just, staying home. There's many, like he was saying, that are carriers that have it, that aren't getting tested. So the numbers are a lot bigger than what they are now.
So with the question about, hey, being in Michigan, there's only a few confirmed cases, should we take our kids out of school? Obviously, that's a personal decision.
Yeah.
One person's going to tell you, no way, it's overreacting, the kids are going to be fine, and which may be true. Other folks are going to say, hey, like me, be a little bit more cautious. It's not about us. It's about, the parents and grandparents, depending on, the age that you're at. But I don't think you're wrong either way, to be honest. I don't think you lose anything by being cautious. You just have to be prepared for what those second and third order effects are. So if you take your kids out of school and it's 3 or 4 weeks before anything happens, if anything happens, like the, pandemic style, wildfire, you're looking at that few weeks of extra work that you're going to have to do to ensure that your kids are up to par, up to snuff, that you've worked out those attendance issues. At the end of the day, safety is everything, and everything else can be regained back. So we took the cautious measure of keeping our kids home, but it was really, really starting to grow. But not only that, another factor for us was Carnival in Venice, huge thing worldwide. People come, was happening for multiple weeks,
to go for months,
and on base, many people at my work, even all over base, they went there, they partied in those close quarters, and now came back, and they all have kids, and so all the people that were traveling to those tourist sites were folks here or at other bases, right, or the tourists coming in. So knowing that they could have taken that back from those areas that we knew already were affected really drove our decision to do that a little bit earlier.
Although there's only 2 confirmed cases in Michigan right now.
That's the one we just did.
Well, you didn't read it. Will you post the site you're using? So the site that we use for statistics for this is worldmeters.info, I-N-F-O. If you Google coronavirus statistics, it will come up. And it looks like this. Sorry, it's probably backwards because we're in selfie mode, but sorry. There it is. And again, message me and I can send you the link if needed. Let's see. USA just passed out swabs to all area labs last week. Before they weren't available. This will contribute to influx here. Are you able to go out for food? We answered that earlier. Yes. You're told to stay within your town if possible. Like I explained earlier, we have the commissary, the military grocery store on base. If my husband's already at work and we find we need something, he is allowed to go do that and to come right home. Or
the supermarkets. But as for restaurants, they have cut all those down except for some delivery services.
So like the food court on our base closed. The BX, our department store, closed. Barbershop, closed.
All right.
And I don't know how to cut his hair.
Yeah, that's right. This is getting beast mode, but...
The phone store, closed. Cafes, closed. Schools shut down. Virtual learning only. What's remaining open, like I said, the commissary, the grocery in your town, the pharmacias, the pharmacies in our towns, open as of now.
So for the portion on, hey, it's affecting the oldest populations, why is it having such a big impact where you guys are at?
Hi, Maria.
And spread so rapidly. The contagion factor is just a contagion factor that's going to spread rapidly regardless. And again, some of those impacts are the hospitalization rate from what I've seen just in general, and taking up all those beds and those services. If you think you have, a team of doctors and medical staff at a hospital, nurses, all kinds of people that are doing things, and they get an influx of, 700 people or 1,500 people that are like, hey, I'm having these symptoms, and you have to make sure to attend to them, test them, isolate them, quarantine them, and sort out who does have it, who doesn't have it. You're talking about a huge amount of effort that has to go into that, and that takes up everything they have available, basically, to where you get to the point where you don't have beds and you don't have enough doctors and nurses to be able to not only deal with the folks coming in, but the folks that are already there, all the other emergencies that are happening.
And Shelly, yep, we just answered that. Feel free to message me if you have any questions. Thank you, Courtney. We're trying. I may need to rewatch this. You're welcome. Thank you for sharing and serving. Prayers the U.S. takes care of you. Thank you. They're doing a great job along with Italy. How can I rewatch? I will post it so it doesn't get lost. Yes. The progression here the last couple of days leads me to believe they may shut the schools. Ohio K-12 called off 3 weeks. Was the progression of schools closed? Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like we stated before, I have a thing with germs or whatever. We're just weird, whatever. So we decided to keep the kids home a couple of days, being it was a new virus and we weren't sure. And then boom, schools closed. Italians did it and we followed suit.
It went week by week, and then I think by the time they got to the point of locking things down, with the rate of incubation being possibly 14 days, they kind of started going in that 2-week increment, 15-day-ish increment that they are going to continue on with, from what I've seen.
April 3rd currently.
April
We're
3rd,
wiped out for the month.
And then without much ado, they can tack on an additional 15 days immediately if it doesn't seem like that is doing anything. Which really is what I expect. What they saw in China is it took about 42 days from the time that it really started ramping up, from the time they locked everything down to where it started plateauing. I wouldn't see that as being any different here. Could be wrong, but I'm expecting that it's going to go further than what it already is. But that's the reassessment date for schools,
April
for
3rd, yeah.
everything else.
Thank you, Casey. Are they doing anything for those people who can't go to work? Like, how are you able to pay bills? That's my concern if we go on lockdown, obviously. Working at Cracker Barrel. Yeah, Angela, as we mentioned with the Italians, no mortgage payments. There's been some other things that have been implemented or they are currently planning. We're doing good as a military family. As far as what's going to happen in the United States with work, I'm not sure. I mean, it's a fluid situation, like they've been saying. It's really hour to hour. I pray it doesn't come to this there, like we're experiencing, but nobody really knows. So I wish I had an answer.
It'll probably be employer to employer, and then you're probably talking about salaried versus hourly is probably going to be a big difference and affect one more than the other, obviously.
What about medical facilities, our nurses?
Absolutely. Medical, fire, any emergency services, they're in full force out there.
Overworked.
Absolutely.
Please pray for them. There are 2 types of people in the States right now: psychotic, apocalyptic. I know what it says, it's just hard to pronounce. Hoarders, and people who aren't taking this seriously at all. What would you say to your friends in the States about the seriousness of the situation, but also how to stay calm? Back to the seriousness portion, I would just say wash your hands. We've been instructed to scrub hands with soap and water if it's accessible for 20 seconds. Let's see. It's serious here. I wish you guys could see what it's like here. How to stay calm at the same time. It has to play itself out. There's really no reason. There's no reason to panic. Just like I said, be smart. Don't be scared. But be smart for your family.
But people are people, right?
Yeah.
So, folks that I've seen it before. Folks that go in the bathroom, take a dump and don't wash their hands, probably are still going to go in the bathroom, take a dump, and not wash their hands.
True.
Folks that maybe go in the bathroom and didn't wash their hands every time they pee, maybe they wash their hands every time they pee now. But for the far left and right on this aspect, they're probably going to stay the same. Probably everybody in between is probably going to merge more over towards being more cautious, which is good.
Yeah,
but
that's great.
Like in anything, you're never going to get all viewpoints to come closer to center. Some of them you will, some of you won't. Washington
State just shut down schools for 6 weeks. Ohio 3, Maryland 2. Yep, you never know. Michigan could be next.
For sure. And I have a buddy I went to school with in Washington that I was watching as that was happening.
Hi, Nana. So as of here now, Ohio has closed all schools. How long before you actually knew schools were closing down?
It was like, hey, maybe this could happen. They're thinking about it. Don't stress out.
Yeah.
To boom, it was closed and it never opened again.
Nothing that ever worried us. They've been really good about keeping people calm here. You know, it's it just happens when it happens.
And I'm not sure exactly how far we're behind here, but
yeah,
we're trying to get through most of these.
Start bringing up. I'm neither of these. What are people doing that take medication if they run out? Well, here on the base, the medical has not shut down. We can still get our prescriptions. There's no panic for that. I can't speak for the Italians with that because we don't have experience with that, but I assume they're taking great care of their people.
For sure. And another thing with, the school closures, another factor for our school here that is unique is the school buses that they use to transport the kids. They're used off base to transport everybody around town. So they're kind of contracted out for those time frames, and when they're not using them, they transfer anybody and everybody between different trips and between city to city. Yeah. So when you talk about, it's not just the kids on the bus that were touching things and touching each other. It was all of the other folks. So that definitely was a factor. But really the biggest factor was following Italian law, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to do what the Italians do on base, right? We have a status of forces agreement that says that we're going to obey their laws, and that's what we do. That's really the baseline.
Michigan has relaxed homeschool laws, also options for online outside of the districts, which is public. Mm-hmm. Sailing schools are closed. When you talked about how they are treating patients at the hospital, where are you getting it from? Local news? Yeah, reputable news sources and proof. It's happening.
For sure.
Ashley says, Craig, are they having the military do anything different or talking about sending you anywhere? I guess they wouldn't make sense because they don't want you to travel, but you know what I mean. Usually, if there's a disaster or emergency, the military hops in. Not sure what can be done, just wondering what is changing for you at work.
So we're at a NATO base, and this isn't our country. We don't have any jurisdiction here. So basically what we do is we're following Italian law. Simultaneously, the folks that need to go to work on base to accomplish the local mission, the mission for the country, the NATO mission, all those factors, we're going to work to accomplish that. If you don't have to do that or you're not helping in a function that our base has kind of put out what needs to happen right now, those folks are staying home to ensure that we're exposing less people.
And we're prepared, the military in the states for anything that needs to be done statewide, countrywide, whatever happens there. There may be different things happening there we haven't heard about. So are you getting groceries and essentials? Yes.
Yep, we talked about that.
Feel free to rewatch the video.
We're doing that.
That's also happening in hospitals here. My friends are nurses in ER and ICU. They're deciding who has a higher chance of living and dying. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is happening. We do not live in the barracks. There's no base housing. Barracks are for single airmen or not married.
So there's dorms for single airmen, but there's no base housing.
No base housing. We are in the village with our lovely Italian neighbors. You're welcome, Jeannie. You're welcome.
Lockdown has only been for a few days for us. For other regions, it has been longer.
Which are just west of us, very close.
Yeah, west, southwest, and southeast.
How long have you been in lockdown as of today? I don't want to use the word extreme, but the extreme lockdown has started.
Just a couple days, yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I understand. Well, I'm not at high risk. Many others are. Some people aren't taking it seriously, I know. When they say the country is on lockdown, what does that mean? You can't leave the house.
So, right, we talked about that, the conditions for leaving the house, but as it stands right now, other countries are locking us out and we're locking them out from the borders.
Yes.
Right? Unless you have a legit need, means, and documentation.
Yes.
And even between the regions. At this point, when it comes to getting your groceries, whatever, it's even between the cities. So if I live in this city and I want to drive 3 miles away to the next city because I like the whatever thing they have in their stores, maybe the wine, absolutely,
the wine.
You can be fined or go to jail for doing that because you have a grocery store that gives you the necessities, right?
The necessities.
Not the luxuries. So that's definitely an issue here. We'll definitely make it shareable.
Yes, we will. Yes. Okay. What have you heard about kids? I've heard that's not really affecting kids, but my mother-in-law saw a medical doctor from Italy on the news today saying there are teens and kids. So,
there are some. I think the rate was 0.2%, so it's very small. There are those factors.
We've heard.
If you have, so for example, like we have a son that's had pneumonia multiple times.
And myself, both of us.
Those could be factors on creating issues for younger folks. Without those issues, like most of the very young adults are experiencing mild symptoms. When you start getting to the 25 to 40-year-olds, I think is the first
up, right?
jump to like 17-ish%.
Yeah.
I could be a little bit off there, but somewhere in that time frame or that percentage for that age group.
Yep. Again, though, it's very strange. It's leaving the kiddos alone for the most part, but I'm sure there are some.
We didn't stock up too crazy, but I like to bake, so I got some flour, which should never be an issue. That's the last thing that people are going to go for because a lot of people don't bake. But some canned goods, some
we like
sweet American
water.
Stuff. Yeah,
we can drink
drinking
from the
water,
faucet, but we like our drinking water. So we,
mac and cheese that we can't get here in Italy, like kind of some silly
products,
stuff.
Yeah. Again, just be smart though, as far as the Lysol wipes and that.
Right.
Just.
But if you're looking to stock up, and it's not for a luxury reason because you like the taste of it,
right?
Like no need to go crazy, right? Like.
Right.
Canned goods, like if you're thinking, hey, this could last a little bit long term and things could be out. Yeah, some of the perishable items are nice to have, but the canned goods are probably going to get you where you need to go, and the flour.
If you're nervous, yeah.
Toilet paper is a big deal, right? When everyone else is buying it, but when everyone's not hoarding it, it's probably going to be fine.
What I've gotten out of it is after this is all done and over, I've learned the lesson that we're just going to keep a stockpile so that if something like this happens again, we just have what we need. We're going to have a little corner downstairs for that.
Small stockpile.
Nothing crazy. The schools are closed through April 3rd, including American the base schools and Italian schools. How quickly did you see cases escalate once a few people started?
Very quickly.
It was very, very fast.
It was crazy.
What items did you need but didn't get? Basically, what we've already went over.
Luxury items.
Yeah.
I mean,
being in Italy,
right.
Some of the things that we missed from the States, but we're actually doing okay right now. We have what we need, so there's nothing really that I wish that. One thing, okay, our mail was stopped for a day. The mail is continued right now. We don't know how long or if that'll continue to happen. But one thing for me I freaked out about was the kids' vitamins. Okay, this is what we use. So on Amazon, I said, man, I wish I would have ordered more of those. I have more on the way. So our mail is back up now. Our mail comes through the base. It's considered a U.S. post office. But that's one thing. Again, just being smart. I would, go get your vitamins, take a vitamin every day if I had to pick one thing, especially for my kids.
As for soap and water we talked about, that is absolutely the number one thing you use
100%.
first. Sanitizer is just, hey, when you can't be there, you can't use the soap and water.
Yes, they've closed they haven't closed banks.
Nope, not the banks.
They haven't closed grocery stores. They have closed the mall, I believe.
They've closed pretty much everything non-essential.
And again, the mall started by closing just the weekend or different places, and boom, just closed until further notice.
So the warning level in the military, it's not necessarily the military, but the CDC's, level. So last that I knew that we're in level 3. Many of the other EU countries are at least level 2. That's a big deal for obviously travel. You wouldn't want to travel to Italy right now, even if you could.
Don't come here. Don't come here right now.
Nothing's going to happen. It makes no sense. And pretty much most countries aren't going to allow you in from here.
So.
If you're a U.S. citizen, you can go back to the United States. Only if you're a U.S. citizen, and you're going to be in quarantine for 14 days anyways. It's not going to change anytime soon.
Slow down. What to stock up on we did. Store is open, grocery, yes. Sorry, you're a faster reader. Post the link on our tribe site. I will. Please remind me if I forget. How do we continue to follow your lives? I will, if he's up for it too, we'll do some live videos, and I will try to make them public to update you guys on what's happening here, okay? Can you please make it shareable? Yes. Even though you're in the shelter of your home, still need to practice not touching your face. 100%, yes. because my husband's still going to work.
And that's going to happen anyways. You know, there's a Facebook video out there that's great.
Yeah.
It's some lady talking about, like, don't touch your face, you know, wash your hands, don't be silly. And then she, like, licks her finger and, like, goes to turn a page, like, as she's saying that. That's the problem with viruses and things, right? Touching your eye, touching your nose, touching your mouth is something you do throughout the day,
especially
hundreds
kids
of
that
times.
can be carrying this.
Well, that's even worse.
Yeah.
But even doing this, right? And you're thinking, or you do this, where you touch your mouth, like...
Don't even think about it. Thank you for the prayers. I will try to make my profile shareable once we hang up. Hi, Aunt Rosalie. What do you say to people who are going on spring break? Would you advise them to stay home? This is from a personal standpoint, but I'm here in Italy at the peak of it, experiencing it, and I would not go. That is me being here and seeing what I'm seeing. You guys here don't see what we're seeing. You can only make the choice for you and your family. And, you know, yeah, I guess that's all I have on that. I can't really advise for you what to do for your own family, but if it were my family, I would be canceling plans.
If you're in an area, like,
maybe he has
even close to where there's a bunch of cases coming out, like, you want to avoid places where you're in close quarters with people. Like, would I go on a cruise right now? Not a chance, right? Hey, it's spring break. Would I take if I'm in the United States and in an area where it's not like totally toasted right now, would I still take them out to do something? Sure. Would I take them out to a trampoline park or somewhere like an arcade? I know that's like, so Chuck E. Cheese is right, not old school arcade, like where all the kids are touching everything. And no, I probably wouldn't do that. But again, that's just my opinion.
Thank you for the prayers and the thank yous. How did our kids handle it? How did you explain it to them? My 8-year-old doesn't quite grasp it. Hi, Maria. My college now is seconds from doing all classes online. The kiddos is thinking of letting them out earlier. Our kids have been amazing. They are both very active like he is. It was hard at first. We have had some tears here. They miss their friends. I'd be lying if I said it was easy for all of us. You know, I'm introverted, so staying at home, I'm used to it. But them, they are not. We would go to the park every day. They would get 2 to 3 recesses a day at school. Overall, though, they've been absolutely amazing how they've been handling it. Doing their online classes, and overall have had a good attitude. The little meltdowns are expected, so. And,
you know, our son's a little bit sad because his birthday is on the 23rd of this month, and he can't have his birthday party now. He can't have his friends come over, no sleepovers, none of that, so. That's probably been the hardest. Yeah, he's thought about that a couple of times and asked some questions, and I'm sure on his birthday that's going to be like the big thing, and we're going to try to make it fun. We're going to do our best. Of all the things that can go wrong, like that's nothing, right? Everyone's healthy and we'll make it up to him. Yeah. Yes, grocery stores are open for the time being. Thank you for answering some questions. Hi, Mrs. Solano. Hi, Drea. Hi, Andrew. I know this sounds weird, but what is lockdown? Hi, Brian and Paulette. Hi, Paulette. The kids and I are not going out of our house right now. If we do, and we are outside of our town and we don't have a good reason, we can go to jail or get a hefty fine. They are enforcing it by patrolling the roads. They had the bullhorns. We live near town. Sometimes I feel like I'm in World War II, not with the violence, but... they have these things on a stick. They have a circle, like a bullseye, and we call them lollipops. If those come out, you better stop. They stand by the side of the road and they go, ah! We go violent. And you have to pull over. Yes. And you better have your papers and a legit reason or your test. Or you might get your tires shot out. I mean, worst case scenario, but yeah. We're okay, Andrew. Thank you for checking in. We're hanging in there. Hi, Cody. The base is out of toilet paper, but the economy so far is not. She's my comedian friend, aren't you, Drea? Thanks for the hugs. Wine. We got wine. It's empty. Minus the 10 liters and 6 bottles. I'll have to post a picture. We got earlier, and the whole other stash that. Yeah, I understand, Jennifer. We can't wait to see you when this is done. Hi, Gary. We are safe and healthy right now. Very, very grateful. Yes, we will try to update you guys. Any specific treatment besides helping with breathing if they can? No. Right, just oxygen for folks that need it if their lungs are filling up. But it's a virus, right? Yeah. We don't know hi, Jeannie. We don't know anyone personally that has the virus, but they're all around us. Not that we know of. Not everyone was even tested, but on base so far there have been 0 confirmed. But the mayor and some other locals in our area absolutely have. So when I talk about like people that I touch day to day, the answer is no. But folks in our community, yes, in our area, confirmed. For sure.
Michelle, we are talking about the coronavirus here in northern Italy where we live. We are from Michigan, but we are currently based here due to military assignment. We will have the replay up. Thank you. 3rd grade and kindergarten for our kids. Jason Eaton. That's not happening. Thank you. Wine does help. Hi, Angela. So there was a few more questions on this page. Let's see if I had anything else before we close this.
I think that's pretty much it.
Just make sure no funerals or weddings here. So unfortunately, the people that are passing, their families can't grieve in the appropriate way right now. No funerals. Unfortunately, it's so sad. Let's see.
So going to the store, a good reason to leave your home. If it's a grocery store, because that's really the only thing that's going to be open for a store, or like they call them the pharmacias, where you can get your prescription where you can get your prescription medication from.
Thank you, Remington.
So it looks like that about wraps it up. Wraps up all the other questions that we have had.
There were some questions on here. I want to make sure I don't leave anybody out.
Apparently, there could be some more questions. In the meantime, I'll have another drink.
Oh, I can't find it. Did my post? Okay, so.
Anybody else have any other questions or concerns or?
Are military families exempt from traveling back to the United States?
So that's a loaded question. So when it comes to emergency situations, humanitarian situations, medical situations, they still can. If, for me, being in the military and my family that is with me, at this point we are not allowed unless it's under those conditions. If you're a U.S. citizen and you are overseas here in Italy and you're trying to get back home, yes, you can get back. You're going to be quarantined, but for U.S. citizens, the basically guidance that went into place from President Trump earlier was referring to everybody else. But U.S. citizens can still, at this time, last I knew, get back to the United States.
Okay, I'm going to go on this last post to make sure.
All right, she's going to check one more thing before we head out. Again, we're going to repost this, so if you want to rewatch it, share it, definitely. Whatever it is, please go ahead and do that. I do want to say again, we're not medical professionals. Use your own critical thinking, right? Use your own judgment. What we're giving here is perspective. We're not giving right. We're not giving wrong. We're not even talking about really what looks right or what looks wrong. Just what we're doing, what we're seeing, and what it is. So what you do and what you need to do is based on your decisions and what you need for your family. So do what you have to do.
The grocery stores, yes, go blue. The grocery stores are getting restocked. Our commissary on base that's provided to us military families to shop are doing the best they can. It's been great. We've been really grateful with how well they've done with keeping up on it. I can't speak for the Italian supermarkets. How was it when you went today to Coop?
It wasn't bad. Okay. Now they're getting ready to close the border both ways. So there could be some issues again, like I talked about with imports, export type stuff. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But as for the people that say it's a hoax, it's not a hoax.
It's such a big deal. I can't stress it enough. People were laughing at me at the beginning, but you know, we're to the point where it's an absolute emergency. So if you feel funny going to the store and feel like people are looking at you like I first did back before this even got super crazy, please don't. Just get what you think you need without panicking. You know, be smart, stay safe, and just worry about yourself and your family. Later on, you'll be glad you did.
And again, it's not just about those of us who are good to go and healthy, right? We have to look out for those that have other conditions or that are older, right? So that's something people fail. They're like, oh, look at the amount of people who have died. It's not enough yet, is basically what I hear people say.
Or those aren't important.
Right. And it's silly.
It's sad.
But that's what we tend to do as humans, is be selfish, right? So try not to be selfish. In the end, if the worst that happens is you go on lockdown, but you can still eat, you can still drink, you can still get medical, you still have shelter, you still have heat, like, you're living better than most people that ever lived in the history of all people that existed.
Especially some of the other countries that aren't as well off. Please pray for them.
So we're not wearing any masks when we're out. People can, if they choose. They discourage it because most of the masks that people have, either if it's a 95 mask, they don't have it fitted right. If it's just your regular surgical mask, generic mask, there's still holes in it. My opinion, sure, like, it still helps you in some fact.
If I was on a train with the kids, I probably would.
Like, there's nothing wrong with it as an individual piece, but that's a selfish piece, because the other thing you have to look at is the amount of masks that are available for folks that actually need it, for folks that have a disease they're trying to stop, or for the medical professionals that need it for themselves. Yes. There's not enough out there for them.
Same with the Clorox wipes. I've heard of businesses afraid, even in the U.S., that are going to go under because they are required by law to sanitize each time, and they cannot get the wipes or the things that they need to clean. And
so the supply is really more of a factor than, like, hey, should you wear one? Like, you're not harming anything. Realistically, you're still helping yourself by wearing one. But what's the most effectiveness coming out of as a community at this point?
Do masks help? I've heard conflicting things on that. They say no, but if I had to be out with the kids, I would probably, in a very crowded spot, I wouldn't see what the harm is, but
minus what I said, like, the whole point is that there's not enough of them.
Exactly.
So it doesn't harm anything. Yes, it does. It will help. It won't prevent
I won't go out and buy them now, personally, you know, so. Nope. All right. I think that is it.
That's it.
So we will try to do another live video, and I will make this shareable afterwards. Please stay safe, wash your hands, and be smart. Bye, guys. Bye from Italia. Ciao.